And here we go. And here we go. Welcome to TechNow, the web series for ServiceNow administrators and developers. I am Chuck Tomasi, here by my lonesome. No Dave Slusher, no Craig Stepp. But that won't stop me from bringing you what's new in Jakarta. So without further delay, let me get into the actual content. Do that, and do that, and present to everyone. There we go. We should have the Jakarta features up there. We are good to go. So today's session is about the Jakarta platform features. And I have heard a lot of people say, gee, Chuck, there's not much in Jakarta. I beg to differ. Without getting into it any further, let me back up a second and tell you who I am in case this is the first time you've ever watched TechNow. My name is Chuck Tomasi. I am a platform architect. Oop, I just said hide the screen. Sorry about that. I am a platform architect with the Platform Experience Group at ServiceNow. That means I help out the solution consultants with technical enablement. I do some of the proof of value things on site and a few other things as job description requires. Been around the industry for a while as a software developer, project manager, IT manager. I was a customer for a couple of years and then came over to ServiceNow in 2010 when it was a much smaller, much younger company, and things were a lot harder on the platform. But thankfully, we've got releases like Jakarta to bring us into the future. It's a great time. It's a lot of advancements that have come through. I'm just busting with excitement to tell you all about them. I won't get too many more into the details. You can read them off the slide because there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about that we want to go on. I mentioned that normally I'd have co-host Craig Stepp, who is in the enablement group, or the education services group, and Dave Slusher, who is a developer evangelist. They are outstanding resources, but they couldn't be here today for personal reasons. We wish them all the best and look forward to the return on our next show. Want to remind you that Knowledge 18 is coming up at the Venetian in Las Vegas, and it's coming sooner than you think. This is the time when a lot of organizations plan their budgets, so this is the time when you want to be sticking your hand up and saying, I really need to go. Not I want to go. You need to go to Knowledge. This is the conference that brings it all together at every level. Whether you are new to ServiceNow and you need some training, we got that. If you want hands-on labs to learn about a new specific functionality or application, we got that. If you're a CIO and you want to talk to other CIOs and find out what they're doing with ServiceNow for digital transformation, yes, we got that too. It's big. It's better. We are going to blow out CreatorCon. If you thought last year was fun, there's some great stuff in the planning for 2018. CreatorCon 18 is going to be bigger and better than ever. Knowledge 18 is going to be bigger than, I don't know what else I can say about this. Go to knowledge.servicenow.com. It's a great time. All right, my community quick tip for this week is building comma-separated values, and some of you may go, yawn, I've seen this before. I've seen a lot of examples. This comes from the community, and I just want to put a stake in the sand and something to reference to say, go watch TechNow, episode 40, fast forward to whatever it is, a few minutes in, and watch the community quick tip, because I've seen this a lot. This isn't so much a ServiceNow thing as a JavaScript thing. So our desired outcome is a list of sysids. We want 4 sysids. A common use case is we want to get the group members out of a group. So we will go get this. And what a lot of people will do is they'll write a loop, something like this. They'll start with a string and they'll just keep adding strings onto that. And they'll say list plus equals group.user.toString to convert the user's sysid or the value in that field, which is a sysid, to a string, and then glue on or concatenate the comma. The problem is it's not quite what you expect because that trailing comma is on there. They go, well, that's okay. I'll put an if statement in there and say if it's the last one. Just like, no, you're now making it much harder than it really needs to be. And for the fact that that trailing comma is on there, if you were to ever go back and use the split operation, you would now have an array of 5 things, the last one being empty. And now you need additional logic to say, oh, well, if it's empty, don't worry about it. It's easier than that, people. Way easier than that. And I've seen this even in some of the out of the box scripts where they do this crazy concatenation thing and then exceptions around that. No, 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 no. Of course, this must have been code that was written back in the 2000 zeros. The easier way is to use an array and then join the stuff together with the array function join that does the opposite of split. You split something, you join something. If I want to split on a comma, then I want to join on a comma. It's complementary to each other. So same starting. Let's go get a query of entries from sysuser gr member and go through the loop. Same thing, while group.next. This time I'm doing a couple things. So I'm starting with an array, and then note the push. List.push is an array function. And it has to do with stacks. And I'm not going to get too deep into the computer science stuff, but a push operation pushes an element onto the stack, and a pop pops it off, like a stack of dishes, right? Whatever you put on the top, you get off the top. This is just making that array for us. It's putting an element into the array. And notice that I'm not using the toString and gluing things together or adding plus. I'm using the get value parameter. This is very important when you're dealing with sysids and other values inside of a while loop. It makes sure you get a copy of that value and not a reference to that value. And one of these days, I'm going to really explain that much better. But this is a lot safer than just saying group.user. And then at the end, I use list.join to put them all together. And what you get is exactly what you want. 4 values separated by 3 commas. And if you do a split on that, you will get an array length of 4. So that's my quick tip of the day. Let's get into the Jakarta features. I want to just quickly check, since I am the only person in attendance here, I don't have anybody keeping an eye on the community, or, what else have we got? I do have another window on the community. I want to make sure that we're not missing something that people are asking. So let me do a quick refresh before we move on, just to make sure there's nothing silly going on like, hey, Chuck, you forgot to set the right window. Nope, that looks good. Keep an eye on this. Go to the live stream. I might eat up a little more bandwidth doing this. And we'll see if there's any comments out there. Nope, we got 1 thumbs up. So, got to mute my phone. There we are. Okay, sorry to stick on this title slide so long. We are doing good. We'll get on with this. See if I can get a, where are my comments? Where are my comments? I want, there it is. Nope. Oh, can't find how to do the comments on my phone. We'll figure that out later, and we'll check the YouTube chat room. But if you want to make comments to this, be sure to put them on the community. There is a community post. Just look for TechNow, and it's on episode 40. You will find it easily at community.servicenow.com. We are going to be talking about a lot of stuff, and as you can see from the agenda, there is a ton of stuff that has changed in Jakarta related to the platform. Most of these are enhancements. Some is new functionality, and some is really cool new stuff that you don't want to miss, and I'm going to do a demo of that. So I will be all over the map here and try to get through this in a timely fashion. Let's start at the top with the UI. I always like starting here because this is the first impression a lot of people get out of this. TinyMCE, which is our HTML editor, now has a smart copy and paste. It's been upgraded from, I believe it was 4.1.3 to 4.4.3. And we've got the improved image uploader. So instead of uploading an image into an HTML field and then going into the HTML and setting height and width and caption and all this stuff, it's available right on that little modal. I apologize, it's a little small to read, but when you start using it, you will get it. It's pretty cool. You don't have to go and modify all the attributes after you update the image. This is the way that a lot of online systems that offer HTML fields work. So we're just staying with the crowd. List v3 is, a lot of people turn up their noses at List v3. I recommend you take a look at List v3 again in Jakarta. Performance issues have been fixed up. I'll talk more about List v3 later. But anyway, performance... No, I'm sorry. This is where I talk about List v3. There's another slide that looks a lot like this one. The performance improvements have been made, so it is not 40 seconds to pull up a list of records. Again, a lot of this is going to depend on your implementation and how many records you're displaying, et cetera, but it is a lot better, and I have been using it almost exclusively in Jakarta, and no complaints here. No complaints whatsoever. The workflow stage icons are back. However, you can't use custom renderers. If any of you have done that, they're not compatible with List v3. but you can see the stages and the arrows and the green circles and the blue arrow. It's all there just like you would expect. If you're using workflow stages, you can now display them in the stage field on the list. Looks great. Live lists, one of my favorite new features. If you've watched Live Coding Happy Hour, you may have seen Josh and Dave go over this. But if somebody modifies something on a record today in Istanbul or Helsinki, you'll see the connect underlying platform layer put a blue circle next to the field and say, hey, this has changed. Someone's working on it. Be aware your short description changed or the due date changed, and you get that little blue circle on the form. We've now got that on lists, even related lists. So if I'm say in Studio, and I've done this already, I surprised myself with it. I'm in Studio and I'm making a UI policy. And you define the UI policy, and now you have to define the UI policy actions. It opens up another tab, you define the action, but your original UI policy doesn't have anything in the related list. Now it will. It's kind of cool. It stays up to date with other changes that are happening related to that record, relating to that list. So you'll see live list changes. Very cool. And as I implied, related lists are V3 by default. So the live lists have to be for V3, and V3 is related list by default. If you've got a tablet, you can now do the right-click action like the context menus by doing a double tap on the menu bar. Up comes your context menu or your list menu or something of that nature. It's all there. We have UI action styles. This is something I demonstrated at, I think I did. I have to remember. I'll go back and look. How you put colors on UI action buttons. We've got some built-in ones. So primary is going to be that primary color of the theme you're using. If it's blue, it's blue, just like you would expect. You may have even seen some of these in Istanbul with big blue UI action buttons on lists and forms. You can do this on your UI actions now. So very easy to do. You don't need any CSS. You don't need to write a UI macro. It's all available right there. Not as many choices. If you wanted a purple button, for example, you might have to work with your theme on that. There is a new shortcut in the navigation menu called incident.config or any table.config. You can do any table.list and bring up a list, that kind of thing. And it will bring up what used to be available in a context menu where it was configure all. This is the same thing, only the context menu, I don't know why it went away or where it went or if it's still there, but this is just another shortcut that you can use to get there. Very handy. If it's a scoped app, I still prefer to do all this stuff in Studio because it's all in one place. But again, if you're on a global app like Incident and you want to tweak a business rule and a client script, et cetera, you can do this with the incident or table name.config. Also, if you're using the activity formatter, the HTML5 videos are in line. You'll be able to view them and play them in line in the activity formatter. They're not just a picture. This happens to be a picture of my backyard, but it's a still shot of a video that I made. So I uploaded a short, I think it was 20 meg attachment to the incident record, and there it was. I could play it. Very cool. Just another modern experience that people expect that we can deliver. Turning the page over to mobile, we now have a calendar. This is around facilities management. I don't normally tread into the territory of other applications, but I mentioned this one because it's part of the mobile platform, and I really look forward to seeing both of these, a schedule and the directions from a map pin. So if you put down a pin and say, hey, how do I get there? It will take you there in the native map application. Whether it's iOS will take you to Apple Maps and Android will take you to Google Maps. So that's very handy, as well as the scheduler on mobile. Wicked cool. Because you think about it, facilities people need to know when they need to be someplace and where they need to, and they're working off their mobile most of the time. This is built in. I would really hope and pray and love to see this in other parts of the platform exposed by an API so you could put it in your application, whatever that may be. For security and authentication, we've got some SAML enhancements. So if you're setting up SAML, it used to be a little bit confusing as to how it was set up. Is it working? Testing it. We've now got things like a UI action. I believe there's one on LDAP that you press on the form and say, test this connection. And it comes back and says, hey, it works. Or email connections, that kind of thing. Very similar in here. Some of our federal customers have been asking for limiting concurrent sessions. We are on a load balance system. So when you get an instance, you may have several application nodes behind that load balancer. Let's say 4 of them. And Chuck logs in and I get to node 1. Well, if my organization's policies say I can only connect to one server at a time, one session at a time. I can set some properties and say limit all users to one session. And then if I log in again and I get steered towards a node 3, the connection to node 1 is broken. This is only for interactive sessions. It is not for REST. It is not for mobile. It won't impact adversely the way you would hope it wouldn't. It's only for interactive from a browser, from a desktop, that kind of thing. When it comes to security and role management, we've got a couple of new things. There is a version 2 security management plugin that you can turn on that you may see it on new instances. You may see it if you've been a customer with lots of entries in your sysuser has role table that got conflicts and duplicates and cyclical checks and a big old mess. Version 2 helps with a lot of that stuff. It also puts in the inheritance map and the inheritance count into that table. So when you're looking at a related list of users with roles and you say, why is template editor in here 3 times? You can find out not only was it inherited, but how it was inherited. That's what version 2 brings you. Don't just willy-nilly turn it on unless please talk with support, find out if this is right for you. But we made some improvements to this so that cyclical checks, if role X contains Y and Y contains Z and Z also contains X, that gets to be a bit of a mess. So it's going to check for that and say, you know what, these people already have X. Why are you doling it out to them again? And we do offer some better improved capabilities to migrate from version 1 to version 2. Just doing a refresh on the community every once in a while, see if there's any questions out there. Still nothing. All right. The fun of doing this yourself. Service Portal, one of my favorite features and one of the ones that I know, wow, I almost said the wrong names. Craig and Dave like as well. We now have user criteria in Jakarta on widgets, widget instances, pages, portals, above just the standard roles. Prior to Jakarta, you could secure a page or a widget with a role and say, this is available for HR users, or this is available for, you had to do the whole group role, assign users thing to them. It does require a plugin, but now the same user criteria that you're familiar with in Knowledge and Service Catalog is available on the various portal widgets. So you can set that up by department, location, group. All these non-role things that you often want to do are available in user criteria. And then, of course, you expose the related list of has access and doesn't have access, like sort of an accept and deny or enable and disable. So you can actually prevent a widget from being seen by a certain group of people based on the user criteria that you've got. Very cool. Very fun. The lists also have a filter builder, same filter builder you're used to on the standard desktop interface, but now we have this available to many of the list widgets as well. I don't have the technical details on how this is put in, but I will look those up and get those to you, put them into the notes related to this episode as soon as I have that. So I don't know if it's an attribute you put on or an option on the widget that's available, how you set that option. I will find that out, but suffice it to say, if you're using, say, the simple list widget, there it is. You can save your filters. You can use the filters you saved. Same kind of thing your users are used to on the standard interface. If you've dealt with search sources, you can now make them contextual. So let's say the search bar that you use on your main portal page looks for knowledge base articles, catalog items, and tasks. And somebody's looking for iPhone, and it pulls up all 3 of those. You want to use the same search widget on the catalog page itself, and they look up iPhone. You don't want the knowledge base articles and your tasks. You just want the catalog items. So search from the search source only. Same widget, different instance. You can add this option. Very easy to do. It says, just filter them down for me. We are, as of Jakarta, WCAG, WCAG, believe is how they say it. That is for accessibility. We are level AA certified, which is better than level A. So things like screen readers will function more appropriately in Service Portal. The global search has had a lot of enhancements. This has just been a big focus in Jakarta, and I love what they've done to this. At first blush, it looks a little different. You're going, well, so what, Chuck? Well, you didn't. I never really noticed this until recently, but the system search bar and the search bar inside of here could often get out of sync. You'd be typing one and you'd see the other and it didn't make sense. These will now stay in sync. Very simple. Well, seems simple to me. Probably wasn't at the platform layer, but very helpful. We've got faster response times because you can divide your search into these groups. Here's the groups of tasks and the tables I want to find. Here's live feed, policy, people and places, knowledge base, and catalog. You group these together and it will search one group and put the results on the screen when it's done searching that group, rather than waiting for all groups to be searched and putting the results on them. There's a little bit of organization. There is an info bar at the top, so you know approximately how far through your search you are. If it's got 50% of the way to go, that's lovely. At least you know now. It's better than waiting. Did the system hang? There's some indicator on there. And as I mentioned, the groups on the right, you can click. Let's say if you click the business rules, for example, halfway down the screen, it will scroll to that point. It's an anchor tag if you're used to HTML. It doesn't filter them on business rules. It brings you to the business rules. And there is a text search view. So if you put this on a list, let's say I'm making an incident table list view called text underbar search. That's what will appear here. So the magic of why do I have number, opened, caller, priority, etc. on here, that comes from the text search view. And if I click through that first link, missing my home directory, I can optionally be brought to a form layout with text search view as well. So a little bit of implicit flexibility in here into how you want to present your search results on the search screen and the click-through. We also have renderers. This is an out-of-box one with admin's smiling face on there. It doesn't happen to be my face, but we can offer custom renderers as well. So if you want pictures or maybe they're your catalog items, you want to put an image of the catalog item on there, that's available too. Easy to do. We'll have more information on that in future shows. The shareable URL. I had somebody say, really? That wasn't there before? No, it wasn't. But if you search for, say, system in this case, the URL can be saved and you can mail that to somebody else so that they get the exact same search. Maybe not the same search results, because remember, it could be at a different time. If they look 6 months later, they're going to get different instances and incidents and whatnot. Shareable URL, very handy. People have asked for it. We provide it. Let's move on to interfaces. The interfaces group that does the inbound REST have created an inbound REST test for automated test framework. ATF was introduced in Istanbul. And now we have the way to test your inbound REST. So if I, say, have a third-party application that is trying to stay in sync and updates an incident record, I can now test that. And to do that, they had to add a new field type. This is rare. I love this. And I'm looking for a personal excuse of how to use this. This is called a name value pair. I know this is a bit of a busy slide, but start with me on the top here. You can use the name value pair field type. This is just a screenshot right out of a table definition. So as I'm creating my table, I created a poorly named field called NV, which is a name value pair. It stores those, and you can build these out much like a condition builder, but a condition builder or a template value field, you're using the fields that are already in the table. This is a new field to create almost subfields. I hesitate to use that term, but it was really put in place to test the REST API headers. As you can see here is an example: accept application JSON, content type application JSON, and so on and so forth. You could store your headers or save name value pairs in one field, and it's stored as JSON, which makes it a breeze to pull out and parse and use. The script on the bottom is an example. If you look down on line 3, you can use a dotted notation of safe.nv.accept equals application says JSON. But if I tried safe.nv.content-type, the dash would screw things up. So I'm allowed to use the bracket notation as well to save that. And the script on the output on the bottom reflects what that light gray script is doing. So it says, here's the value of this field, here's the value, and here's the value of the whole thing. Just gsinfo.safe.nv. It's in JSON. It's easy to use. Also related to JSON, the interfaces team has made an import and export. So I can go to a list and say, export not just CSV, PDF, XML. I can now export to JSON. Very handy if I need to give somebody else that information. I can set this up as an export set. I can import in a data source from JSON now. Very helpful. There are some notations that you need to be aware of if you're doing that, because your import may not actually start at the top level of the JSON, just like you'd have to XPath your way down through the XML. You may have to say, this is the starting point. This is an array. I want you to loop over the array. Here are the records. Very easy to do from a data source standpoint, but just a couple of nuances you want to be aware of. We'll have more information on that. In fact, I would be surprised if we don't get that very, very soon in an upcoming TechNow or Live Coding Happy Hour. All right, now we get to one of the cooler features, the guided tour designer. One of my favorites that has been introduced, and this goes a long way to helping everybody, not just your end users, but it could be your fulfillers, it could be your approvers, it could be your admins. You can guide them through these self-guided tours, which are displayed in the embedded help screen. I'll show you in just a second. They click take a tour. They're walked through these on-screen instructions. It's kind of computer-based training right on your instance to help them. Let me give you a quick demonstration of how that would look. So I've got a Jakarta instance here, and I'm going to start at the home screen. Under Guided Tour Designer, I'm going to try to make that just a little bigger, but I could run out of screen. Embedded Help, Guided Tour Designer, Create Tours. I'm going to create a tour for you. Unsupported browser. That's not good. Huh. Funny, I was just using this earlier. Let's do a refresh on this. Guided tour. Create tour. There we go. All right. First question it says is give your tour a name. I'm going to call it Chuck. Application page name. Where do you want to start? If I want to start at the home screen, I just simply put in home. If I want to start in incident, I can do incident or incident list. Maybe I want to start with an incident list. Maybe I want to start in the incident form. This is all based on the various tables you have on your system. I'm going to start on home. I like starting there. And you can restrict this by role. So if this is for your fulfillers, you put ITIL in there, or you put your application role in there. So it is restrictable by roles. I'm not going to do that at the moment. Up comes the guided tour designer. This is kind of like the form designer. And if you think about it, it's your system in a system. And I've got these balloons that I choose from over here. And the first thing I want to instruct them is you go over here and type incident. And I have an action. Once they type in incident, what do I want them to do? Do I want to display a next button? Do I want them to click on something? No, I don't want them to click anything. I want them to just press the enter key. Well, if you press enter key while you type up there, it's going to take the first choice you get. I didn't know if you know that. The change element or press any key. You know what? I'm going to just stick with the next button on this one. And that's my first instruction. My tour is off and running. When you type incident, and you can do this while you work on it, we want to find, say, open. I'm going to teach them how to open a new incident. So let's go to, I could just go to create new, but that's no fun. Click, open. Now on this one, once they click it, that's when I'll advance to the next step. Very easy to do. I mean, these are crazy simple, stupid. And I will follow along and click open. Now let's have them click new. Oh, and if you pick the wrong bubble and say, you know, let's put this one on top and point to the new button, it goes, you don't have enough room to do that. A call out on the top will not fit here. So pick a different one. Right, left, bottom, I don't care. Well, let's pick bottom. Let's see if we can hit that. There's the new button. Click new. And this one, I think I will also click the element. And it will come up with something like that. And we can just keep doing this. It's very easy. Enter Red Luddy. Now, I was looking earlier, and I noticed you can put in some basic HTML. I don't know how far this goes, because I just noticed it 10 minutes before I started the show. But let's put in some HTML and see what happens. This is an experiment, totally unrehearsed. Let's save that and see what happens. And then finally, we'll just put in, click submit. Oh, that one didn't fit right there. Notice that? I thought it would. Get that. Nope, won't fit. I need a different one. I need maybe that one. Click submit. And when the item is clicked, there we go. I've made a tour. Woohoo. I can either test it and play it now, or I can go back and exit because it's saved all along. I should have done the play option. That wasn't any fun. Let's go back to the guided tour. I can open it up and say, there's my Chuck, edit with designer, and play. Brings up another tab. Very nice, very handy. And I am on the home screen. And it says type incident. And if I don't want to play this right now, it says there's a take tour button there. Okay, so I can always come back to it. Type incident, click next. Now it doesn't say, hey, you typed incident wrong. So we might have some fun there. Click open. Notice where the click open is. I have made a mistake in my placement on this thing. So let's go fix that. It's obviously not in the right place. Not found in current view. So I need to cancel that. Get back to where I was, incident, and click open. Should have appeared there. Let's see if we can move that. Yeah, it looks like it's on the right spot. Why was it scrolling up and down funny? Interesting. All right. We'll come back to that. Let's go back to our test plan. Take the tour, type incident. But you get the idea. This is how you make nice computer-based training. I'm going to go down here, click open. Then it says click new. I click new. Brings up the form. Enter Fred Luddy. This is in a nice bold font, so the strong tag actually worked. Fred Luddy. Can't spell Fred Luddy, but that'll work. Click next. Click submit. And I'm done with my tour. Except that I'm missing a short description. So my tour should include a few more instructions. But that's Guided Tour Designer. Very easy to do, very user manageable. If I want to make that view a little different, if I have multiple tours, the little up arrow will come up down here. Let's stay on that form. I don't have a form in mind that has multiple tours, but then you can say, I want to take the change management tour, but I want to take the emergency change management. And you could have a different one for each one of these forms. Very easy to do, very easy to lay out. So hope you find that as exciting as I do. Turn the page over to notifications. Notifications, we have email image filtering. The problem, the use case for this is customers were telling us that every time somebody sends in an email and it gets processed by the inbound actions, it gets attached to the appropriate record. Well, you've got this conversation going back and forth with your end users, and your end users have an image on their email signature. You now have all of these same image1.png, image1.png on your attachments across the top of your form. That was getting to be a bit of a mess. So what we did is allowed you to configure a couple of properties to say, here's what the minimum size is. Anything below 4K or whatever it is. You set a size. It will say, I really don't care about images like this because 4K is probably not a screenshot or anything that I really need to care about. It's probably just another email attachment, a signature file. And you can tell it what to do with that. It will keep it in the sysattachment file or a sysattachment table, but how it displays that and when it displays that is up to you based on the action. If you say attach to target, then it will show up at the top as an attachment, just like all your other attachments. If you say attach email, it will show up in the email like you do here when you say show email details. Boom, there it is. Or you can say attach none. It still keeps it in the sysattachment table just in case somebody somewhere is referencing that. You won't wind up with a broken link. For example, you may want to see it in the inbound preview, outbound preview, that kind of thing. There is an href in there that's going to reference the sysattachment table. So we don't want any broken links. We're not going to throw it out, but we will display it appropriately in the system at the right time. We also have a feature called random watermarks. Random watermarks allows the little tag at the bottom of your outbound emails that says MSG to relate any replies back to the appropriate record. So if I responded to an incident, it would say ref MSG, say 00002. Two problems with that. One is we have more and more customers that are interchanging information with each other, and sometimes the email has a reference in it that gets confused with their system. So I may have been talking with somebody at Acme Corp, who is also a ServiceNow customer, and I sent out a message about an incident, and their instance picks it up and says, oh, well, this reference has to do with a change. And now I have an incident comment in the context of a change. Not good. So we've put on these random watermarks, and you can define whether it's 1 to, I think, 26 characters of this nonsense you see at the bottom of the screen. You know, S7FNSGPWO. It sounds like a song. At least it does to me. And that randomizes it. So if I do send it to another instance, it's very, 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 very unlikely, unless our administrators say that, hey, let's agree that we only have one random character. Not very random in my opinion, but very unlikely that we'll have this crosstalk miscommunication thing going on. It also, from a security standpoint, some customers were noting that if I can spoof an email, which is very easy to do, making RFC 822 headers is not a big deal. And I can say, I'm chuck.tomasi@servicenow.com. And I sent this message, and I happen to know a little bit about where we are with the reference numbers. I could theoretically approve something that may not have needed to be approved, or not approve something. Maybe somebody doesn't get hired because somebody spoofed an email and guessed the right reference message to that approval. So this helps out with some of that. All right, I'm going to go one more on notifications, and then I have a comment in the community. Thank you very much. Notifications, we also have consolidated preferences. This is everything in a single location. Turn them on, turn them off. Set your filters and which ones you want. It is UI 16 only, so if you're still on UI 15, you know, you might want to think about this. UI 16 has been around since Geneva, Helsinki, Istanbul, and now Jakarta. That's 4 releases, and you're still using a UI from a couple of years ago. Might be time to think about UI 16. It is a very nice interface, so I encourage you to use this for that. We also group them by categories instead of just tables. So before you had to know what table, and that wasn't really user-friendly if they were managing their subscriptions. Now the administrator can put groups around these and say, here are my ITSM notifications. Here are my notifications for approvers. Here are my notifications for my custom application. And it's not around a specific table, but you can categorize these and group these together on your own. Very easy to do. Plus, ding, 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 it is available on mobile, which is usually where a lot of people want to manage their notifications anyway. A couple of terminology changes. We've changed from devices to channels on this screen. Devices, most people think my mobile phone, my laptop, my tablet, those are devices. We're talking more about channels. How do you want to be notified? Via SMS, via push notification, via email? What is it? Well, how do you want to be notified? I think that made a lot of sense. And also, if you're looking to put filters on existing notifications, let's say you're getting every time an incident is updated and you want to add a filter on that, we've changed subscribable to personal notification. You go in there and say, all right, give me the incident updated or incident commented, and filter it down to just the priorities in 1s and 2s. I can deal with that. All right, our question from the community. First question. In the automated testing, can you change your inputs without having to go into the script? James, I don't know the answer to that one. I'm going to have to look that one up, and I will follow up with you on the community right after your... Oh, ding, press the wrong button. Right after I find out, I'll put it right there as a response to your comment. We also have a couple of likes on that one. We also have another comment. You wrote user criteria for portals. Does that include a user criteria for the whole portal, or would it be nice, or just specific pages? Right now, I know it's applicable to pages. I am going to check and see if it's available on portals. Hold on real quick. I'm going to look. Let's put that away. You're seeing this live just because I have a few extra minutes. We don't have Craig and Dave around. Otherwise, they would look. So let's go to, first I need to understand if I have service portal. Let's go to portals. Leave. We'll take the default out of box. I'm in global, so that's good. And if I have the related lists on there, or related lists available to me, wait for the page to finish loading. Let's go to configure related lists. And I don't have those on, which tells me the plugin is not available at the moment. So let's go to plugins, system definition, plugins. Come on. There it is. Leave that because I didn't mean to rename that portal. And the portal is, I'm going to look for anything with criteria in it. Service portal user criteria support is active. All right. Well, that answers that question, because if I go to service portal pages and I look at, say, this particular page and I do configure related lists, I will have similar to what's in the, I believe it was can view and cannot view were the related lists. And if I look at the portal, I don't see the entire portal. Now, each portal is going to have a landing page. So keep that in mind. You could also restrict the access to that landing page. Let's look at service portal. I want to make sure I just didn't miss something real quick. Service portal, global portal page. And it's not on there right now. All I have is search sources related lists and configure related lists. I don't see can view and cannot view in here. So the answer to that one is sorry. Nope. But I like the idea. I would think about doing that with a at the page level for your landing page, your index page. Good questions. Good questions all. Orchestration. This is where I really wish I had Craig on hand, because orchestration is kind of his bailiwick. But if you use mid-server scripts like PowerShell scripts and whatnot, and you used to put them into the mid-server script record, they are now available as attachments, which improves some performance stuff because you don't have to send the whole attachment as a record. And as Craig noted yesterday when we were going through, or Friday when we were doing a walkthrough of this, he said, oh, that's nice because our script editor doesn't really understand PowerShell. It understands JavaScript very, very well. But writing a PowerShell script can be a bit of an annoyance in the script editor. So now you can edit it in an editor that understands this stuff, attach it to this record, and I believe it uses a checksum or some sort of fingerprint that says, is the one on the mid server still the same as the one that's attached to this record? If not, I'll upload it. If not, let's go forward. It's the same script. I don't send it every time I'm executing that activity. So from a performance standpoint, it's easier. From a management standpoint, I feel it's a little easier too. If you're using orchestration for, I have to admit, this is about the extent of my SQL knowledge, is when we start getting into stored procedures. These are little functions that you can write in the database itself. So whether you're using Oracle or MySQL or something, you can use orchestration to reach out to that remote database and call out those stored procedures with parameters. Very handy for that. We also have the client software distribution enhancements have been put on there. There's a whole bunch of information. I haven't done client software distribution, but if that's your thing, look for those features as well. Info blocks, DDI activity packs. You can see some of those on the right-hand side for DHCP, DNS. I've never used info blocks in my life, but I want to call these out in case this is of interest to you. And of course, we can do Azure AD now as well. Update sets. Very interesting update we have with Jakarta in here. We can now do parent-child relationships, which means you can batch your update sets together. This is way better than doing merged update sets. If I have, say, 10 update sets and I merge them all together, that effectively becomes one update set, and I cannot back those out in any way, shape, or form other than in its entirety. With this methodology, we're creating a hierarchy, and I can say B is the child of A and C is the child of B. And if I want to take B and C out, I can back out B. And it will do that. It will also look for conflicts. So if HR and IT happen to modify the same script in two different times, it's no longer last person wins. It will come up and say, hey, there's a collision in here. Are you sure you want to do this? Who do you want to win, IT or HR? And I could always back out the HR changes aside from the IT changes, even though they were applied with one master parent update set. Very cool. And as far as performance goes, this is one of my favorite features. If I had 10 different update sets and I was applying these on a Friday night individually, I may have a lot of extra delay incurred as it goes and alters the table. This particular update set goes and adds a field to task. Oh boy, you better sit back and wait. Then I do another one later that does an update to task. Oh, sit around and wait some more. It's smart enough to gather all of these up in one and do one schema alter for all your updates. It goes through and it searches for everything, resolves any conflicts that need resolving, like I mentioned earlier, and then applies them in a logical order. But it's a lot faster to do one table alter. Trust me on this. I have tested that. There are a couple of properties. What's the first thing everybody does when they retrieve an update set or load an update set? You preview it. Almost 99.999% of the time. I don't know of an instance where I've loaded an update set and not previewed it. I may not commit it, but I always preview it. We have one to auto preview. You can turn that on and it will auto preview as soon as it's loaded. Save you a little step. It's a nice thing to have. We also have one called Glide Update Set Retrieve Days. If you're retrieving update sets from dev to test, for example, and you've been a customer for, let's say, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, you've got a lot of completed update sets that you really don't really care about. You can set this to, say, 90 days, and it won't show those anymore. It won't retrieve them. It puts the query on the other side and says, if it's older than that, I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. And maybe you don't, and maybe you do. You can always change that. One note when you're dealing with the parent-child relationships on the update sets, make sure you name your update sets well. If you're like me and you tend to be a little lazy, you may have 3 or 4 applications that their update sets are just called release 1, and you rely on the scope or the application name to resolve that. When you click that magnifying glass and you get your little pop-up related list, it's only going to display the name. And if the name is release 1, release 1, release 1, release 1, wait, now I don't know if this is the one for this particular scoped app A or scoped app B or global update set. Like, name them well, put some details in there. It's just good practice anyway. Also related to upgrades, we have made in-family upgrades. If you go from, say, Jakarta patch 0 to Jakarta patch 2, this is applicable from Jakarta going forward. It'd be nice if it was retro, but it wasn't. It will go much faster because it doesn't analyze all the stuff that's already been done. Faster in the stance of schema changes. If you've ever looked at the progress monitor while you have an upgrade in progress, that second step says updating schema. I saw this live. It was kind of fun. It went gold, 80, 90, 100%. And then it just went, whoop, it skipped right over update schema changes because per ServiceNow, we almost never, I won't say never, but almost never put schema changes, add new tables, add new fields to tables into a patch release. So it's going to go much faster because we don't have to go and analyze the whole schema and look through all the updates, etc. And it's a little hard to read on the bottom. I apologize for the crummy screen resolution. It looks blurry. It looks like I need glasses, even though I'm wearing my glasses. It was a screen scrape of another screen scrape. Excuse me. We've added a couple of new related lists to help you with the upgrades. And this is one of our main customer complaints is the upgrades are too hard. And part of it is the review process. What you would get before is that third related list that says customizations unchanged, 2124. And you as the administrator would have to go through over 2,000 things and review them. Now we're saying, look, this is a patch upgrade. If you've got to Jakarta, you probably already reviewed these anyway. What's changed? What have you modified on your system since we went to Jakarta patch 0 and now we're going to patch 2? It says, oh, you've got 23 things. That's what the first related list says. All I did is filter out the priority 5s, which are things like sys documentation. Oh, glory be, you changed a label on a field. Ooh, that's a tough one. Now I've got 8 things to figure out. I would much rather, as an administrator, verifying patch 2 of Jakarta, look at 8 things and decide whether or not it's time to upgrade safe. Should I ignore them? Should I go forward? Then over 2,000. That's just a much better ratio in my mind. So upgrades have gotten much better. ATF, hip hip hooray, we've got scheduled test suites in ATF finally. It will email you a report like at the bottom of the screen or at the right hand of the screen that you see there. We borrowed these from an internal thing we were doing on High. So we just said, hey, we're already doing this with tests and mailing results in the middle of the night. It's great. You can pick a browser. So if your client runner is running Windows 10 on Chrome, Great. That's one of your test cases. You can schedule that and set it up and run that. If you are running multiples, if you want to run this in the middle of the night, you have to have those client browsers set up and designated either for the background testing or as a foreground testing. So there's a little bit of setup you got to do on those client runners. But hey, you set up a VM or 3, you've got 2 or 3 different environments. Maybe it's Windows 10, maybe it's Windows 8, maybe it's 2 or 3 browsers on each. You can set those up as your client test runners and have them sitting out there waiting for your nightly tests. You don't have to have somebody actually at the keyboard now. The log files are down to millisecond resolution because a lot can happen in 1 second, and we want to make sure that you've got important information that's at your fingertips and you get things in the right order. So the log files on ATF are now down to milliseconds. There are a number of new reports to help you understand what happened and what didn't. And there are several new properties on the ATF properties page. And one of them that I want to call out is when you save images. Because in ATF, I'm going to call it 1.0 in Istanbul, it saved an image after every step was run. That tended to be a little slower and a little confusing because not everybody wanted an image. Customers were saying, I only want an image if it fails. That's the important part, right? So we've done that. It makes the test run a little faster. You can set the property. I think there's 2 or 3 different values. Save them all the time. Save them only when fail. Save it never. And it's up to you now when those get saved. Workflow has a couple of changes. One of them is the return of the table cleaner. If you are a customer that remembers, I think it was Calgary or Dublin and before, we had this table cleaner that would come along and it worked something like this. The gray bar on the bottom is my timeline. You create, say, a catalog, and it would create a workflow context with it. So your workflow context is running, it needs approvals, et cetera, et cetera. Time goes by, you run more catalog items, you run more workflows, and then at some point, that first one or second one, there it is. The second one is complete. So the gray indicates the workflow is complete, but the context and the history and all that stuff still lives on your system. Now we're starting to tie up some serious table space, which could lead to performance, makes your backups take longer, et cetera, et cetera. Time goes by, more get added, more get complete. And then eventually the table cleaner comes along and goes, bye, see you. I'm going to delete it. You're older than 6 months. Great. Okay. I've solved the table messiness, but then someone comes along and modifies this record. Maybe they add a comment, or maybe they change the record in some way that triggers the workflow engine and goes, oh, I don't see a workflow running on you. Let me start a brand new one. Well, that's not a good thing to do. That now you've got approvals going out for something that's been completed for 2 years. Not good. So we made it a little smarter such that it's got a history of what was completed and deleted. It's called a binding table. And it will check the binding table to say, okay, somebody modified an old record. It doesn't have a context. Should it? That's the logical question. How does it know? Well, it knows because when you get into Jakarta, it's going to go and check. Do you have context? Do you not have context? Should you have context? Should I clean them up? Let me keep a history of all that stuff so that decision of should it start a new context or not is now an intelligent decision. Much smaller table. It's not the whole history table. It's not the whole logs. It's not the whole context, but it will start one if it needs to. Maybe there was something that changed. So the workflow table cleaner is back, much better. The workflow welcome page, I'm sad to see that TechNow episode number 9 on extending approvals is no longer a featured image. Actually, I'm not sorry. I found it kind of humorous. I thought maybe it was just something they stuck in on a demo when they introduced that page back in Eureka, and it just stayed. I was thinking that's the best we can do for welcoming people to the world of workflows. Interesting. But I didn't complain. It was my video. It's been cleaned up. We now have, when you first jump in, you'll see that image at the upper right where you see published, what's checked out. So it's very easy to see what you have checked out and any help. And if you click through to help, it will look like the image on the left where you've got buttons. Click workflow videos. It takes you to the ServiceNow community, not the community, I'm sorry, the ServiceNow support channel for all workflow related videos. Very handy. And if you if you turn on something like orchestration, very workflow intensive, it will add the appropriate badges or buttons to that help screen to get you the orchestration help. So it's very aware. We also added the blue new workflow button A lot of people didn't realize the plus over on the far left was how you created a new workflow. So we made it just a little bit easier. Yes, there's now 2 ways to create a new workflow. In case you got people who have motor skills like me and you're completely blind to new features, you go hit the plus. If you got newbies, there's a big blue button in primary color. We also changed the meaning behind the when the workflow starts. So you've got if condition matches that field, you start a new workflow. It says enter your table. I want to use the requested item table. When would you like this to start? Well, it defaults to none. And the old default was run if no other workflows matched yet. We found a rare but very confusing issue that kept popping up. Not everybody, not all the time, and I don't remember what the exact situation is. I'd relay it to you if I remembered. But suffice it to say, it now says deprecated. Please don't use that one anymore. Use the one on the bottom. Run if no other workflows are matched. Or my favorite, just run the workflow always. You do need to set this because if you leave it as none, your workflow won't run. I found this out a couple of days ago. Why the none option is on there and it just doesn't default to the first run always, I don't know. I didn't make it, but something to watch out for. I've been testing this stuff, and you now get the news that I got. As I mentioned before, the stage renderer is back in list 3. If you are an Edge encryption user, there are a couple of new things you want to be aware of. First, there is an installer application. Yay! Walks you through step by step because that config file was confusing with 4 entries for every key and every file, and it went on and on and on, and I didn't know what I was supposed to fill in, and was it conditional based on something else? It was a big old mess. So Unix and Windows now have that available. We also have scheduled upgrades. People were installing this in Helsinki, I think is when Edge came out. Might have been Geneva. And they've been running the same proxy as they upgrade the instance. Unlike the mid server, Edge doesn't go out to your instance. Is it time to upgrade? Is it time to upgrade? Is it time to upgrade? Oh, there's an upgrade. Let me download that and run it for you. You schedule the Edge encryption proxies. All you have to do is say which proxy and when you want to upgrade it, and it will take care of the rest. It's a very simple, clean process. It will tell you if you go into the Edge encryption section and it says, hey, you've got an old, outdated proxy. You probably want to update it. So you're very aware we're in your face because we weren't before. And a lot of people just went, oh, if it ain't complaining and it ain't broke, it's going to be fine. Well, it could have been broken. It wasn't just fine. So now we're more in your face, proactive about getting that going. Whew. That's it. Those are my favorite Jakarta features. Lots of enhancements. The guided tour designer is probably right at the top of the list. People say there wasn't any cool stuff in Jakarta. Ha! I showed you. I spent the last hour telling you. It was a lot of fun. If you want to know more, go over to the wiki, the docs, YouTube. Lots of great places. There are previous episodes of this available at the bit.ly link you see in red at the bottom. I'm going to do one quick refresh since we have a couple more minutes on the community page. And we've got one more page about List v3. I noticed that in my personal developer instance, List v3 is extremely slow and there isn't a lot of records either. Just the incident out-of-box demo data. Is that because it's a PDI, personal developer instance, with limited server resources, or should I look at something else? Could be. I'd see how long that's taking and run some other tests. I'm not going to say the personal developer instances are not production grade. That's how we can afford to get them to you for free. So they're going to be lesser. I have been using a personal developer instance, and List v3 has been behaving pretty well. We'll have to compare notes on whether or not it's a data issue, how fast it's rendering. We still have the client timing design, the client timing widget down in the bottom corner. So let me flip back to stop screen sharing and get back over to that screen. Thank you very much for watching this. Get my microphone back in my face. And we appreciate that. If you have any more comments, certainly, if you're not watching this live, go to the community, look for TechNow episode 40. Put your comments in there. We'll answer them as time goes by. I'm sure people will be watching this long after Jakarta is a brand new feature. But again, thank you very much for watching and take care. Have a great time. Let's mark that as done and play the music. Join me when Craig and Dave come back, and we'll be covering more cool stuff in Jakarta. Till then, bye now.